Let's go back to Canberra now, because joining us live is the Shadow Home Affairs Minister, Karen Andrews. Karen, good to see you. Thanks for your time this morning. So, as you know, millions are still in the dark over their private data this morning. There are also reports that Optus resisted multiple federal government efforts to tighten cyber security obligations because of costs. What's your reaction to that?
Well, firstly, my concern goes to the millions of Optus customers who are still very much in the dark. So that's the first thing that is of concern to me. The lacklustre response of the federal government is also concerning. But to the point that you've just made, there were many businesses that were concerned about what the impacts may well be of the critical infrastructure legislation that I introduced into the last Parliament and was passed in 2 stages. So there were concerns about that, what the cost was going to be. So many industry sectors were concerned about the costs that would be involved. But it was still necessary to proceed with that legislation, and that's exactly what we did.
So Optus is right to suggest that the costs wouldn't have allowed it to proceed with that. Is that what you're saying there? You don't have any problem with what they're saying?
I think that point is probably going a bit too far, because in the process of consultation, what we did was we heard from a lot of industry sectors about what their concerns were. Many of the businesses were concerned about what the costs may well be. But the reality was that legislation was still passed by the Parliament. So, quite frankly, the costs, whilst they may have been an issue for industry, were not one that I was minded to accept.
OK, I mean, has the company put profits here before the safety of its customers?
I don't think we should just focus solely on the Optus response. Without a doubt, it has been lacking in a number of areas. But I think we also need to look at what the response has been from the federal government. And the Minister for Home Affairs was very slow to do anything, and in fact has done very little, even though she had promised that we would hear more from her. We really didn't. But where was Penny Wong on the passport replacement issue? Where has Mark Butler been on Medicare card replacement issues? Now, the states were actually out faster. I don't think it should be a cost to the taxpayer to deal with that, but it seems that the states have been able to negotiate something with Optus for reimbursement. What's the federal government been doing? So this is a wake-up call to industry to make sure that they have their house in order effectively. It's a huge wake-up call to the federal government that they need to be on the front foot in these issues. And quite frankly, it's a huge wake-up call to Australia, because the only time a Labor government is on your side is when they need your vote for an election.
Well, just back on passports there, because Penny Wong is open to waiving or looking at waiving the fees for those who might need a new passport. Stephen Jones was on the program a short time ago, and he says, as things stand, given the multiple layers of security, your current passport is still okay. So what do you think needs to happen when it comes to passports? Should fees be waived, or are you satisfied that things are okay as they stand?
Well, let's be clear about this. Senator Patterson raised the issue yesterday in relation to passports, and he and Simon Birmingham, as the Shadow Foreign Affairs Minister, have been out speaking about passports and replacements and any of the issues associated with that. What is sadly lacking from the Labor government is any reassurance to the Australian public that they are on their side. They are clearly not. So what they need to be doing is working through what the solutions are. They should have done that by now. And if that means that there needs to be passports replaced, and I think they should be seriously looking at that, because that data is used for a range of checks. They should be looking at that. It's very easy to do, although clearly there's problems that the government hasn't got on top of in relation to processing passports anyway. But they should be dealing with that. They should be dealing with replacement Medicare cards, and they should be focused on a solution, not trying to figure out who they can blame.
Well, I mean, you point to the lacklustre government response, but it is looking at increasing fines for those who breach security or the privacy of customers moving forward. It's looking at the passport option. I mean, what else can it be doing? Isn't the blame mostly on Optus?
Well, I introduced legislation that had previously been introduced into the House in February of this year in relation to ransomware. That would have been in in the previous sitting period, but as you would be aware, because of the passing of the Queen, that week didn't proceed.
Right.
So it was introduced as soon as we possibly could. So that went in on Monday. There's been no response from Labor, and that deals specifically with ransomware attacks. So they haven't dealt with that, despite carrying on for 2 years in opposition about how important ransomware and cybersecurity was. They haven't done it. Clare O'Neill said that we'd hear more from her. We haven't heard more from her at all. In terms of promises of legislation, where is it? If it doesn't go into the House now, we're not sitting for another few weeks. So how are they going to deal with that? And that goes to the evidence of their very lacklustre response.
OK. Should the Optus CEO remain in her position?
Look, that's clearly a matter for Optus to deal with. I would suspect that there's a lot of soul searching happening within the Optus ranks at the moment as to how they got themselves into this predicament, and they need to deal with that. I think the first priority needs to be protecting the data and supporting those up to 10 million account holders who have lost their data. So let's not go through a finger-pointing exercise at this point in time, and I don't think that Optus or anyone else who has been in this situation should be let off the hook lightly at all. But the focus has to be supporting those poor people who don't know what to do at this point in time because the government has shown no leadership.
OK, Karen Andrews, we're out of time. Appreciate your time as always, though. We'll talk to you soon.